Welcome to Stu and the Nunn, an online show and podcast focused on national security, policy, politics, and selfless service. We are here to give you an honest opinion, a different perspective, and hopefully a few laughs. We do this by not only interviewing guests, but also sharing our own perspectives and asking you, the listener, to interact with us on our show chat room, via our Facebook page, and on Twitter. All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of Stu and the Nunn, February 4th, first episode of February, and I had to throw in some music I know my brother would love. Had to mix in some special remix AC/DC. Hopefully we don't get shut down or copyrighted for that. But anyways, how you doing, Toby?
Well, for a second there, I got like crazy motivated. I was like, is this gonna be the bagpipe version? Because I don't know. There's some of them bagpipes that motivates me.
Yeah.
Motivates me.
I saw the smile on your face. I'm like, okay, Toby's getting the music. We're good.
Yeah.
We're tracking.
Yeah. No, it's good. I dig it. That might be the best one yet. I'm so happy.
Yeah.
So happy.
There we go. Anyways, after last week had some issues and all that stuff, I thought, hey, let's kick it up here. I got to do a couple things here. I thought let's kick it up a notch and get that going. Hold on a second. I gotta fix some audio. There we go. And get my feeds going. But anyways, yeah, good to see you, brother. Sorry I was out last week.
Well, no worries. It was Bush League as always, but first and foremost, I'd like to dedicate tonight's show to my dad. It's been a couple years to the day that we lost him, and it just
is today the day?
Right around here, yeah.
Oh man.
So, I think if he saw some of the things we're talking about, he'd be interested, and he'd also be like correcting me on my language.
He'd be listening there with my mom, just be like texting, be like, "What is it?"
Here's to him. So
there we go. There we go. Here's to him. Here's to Pops. Little camouflage koozie.
There you go. Can't see it. Can't see it. No, I missed you last week, but I had my brother from another, Travis Wilson, to kind of hold it down for you. You did a great job. As always, there were some technical issues. I believe the only technical issue was Facebook, but we're up and on it. With the Book of Face today.
The man was trying to shut us down.
Apparently, you have better street cred. You have better street cred than I do.
I went to Mark. I was like, "Hey, Mark, don't be shutting my boy down. Like, come on, break us.
You did Jen Psaki, you mean?
Jen Psaki, yeah. Mark's alter personality. That's when his pronoun changes. He's gonna circle back around on that.
Yeah, he's gonna circle back. He's gonna circle back on his pronouns. Like, how do you prefer to be addressed, Jen?
Yeah. Do you like being a soulless ginger or a tech giant robot-looking dude?
Either way, it's something. It's something. But no, lots of you were out with family last week, and that's awesome that you get to do it, and it's great to have you back, because as always, we Rob, the unpaid producer. Like this morning, I thought like it was an Amber Alert, or something was going wild and crazy when like my phone was blowing up at like 5:30 in the morning with like a bazillion different changes to like the guest lineup. But no, it's good to just, when we get a break from each other, to like reconnect and just the two of us go.
Yeah,
because there's so much to go through.
I want to be honest though. We're gonna give our viewers and listeners a little bit of behind the scenes here. I don't know which one is the jinx. Is it when you spend a lot of time prepping before a show, or is it when
It
Travis,
always-
or is it when Travis is on? Because it seems to be, if I were to go back and trend it, it seems to be, or combination of both. Like I had Travis on as a guest host, we had no problems. But when you spend like an hour and you're all pumped, and maybe you jinx yourself, 'cause you're like, I spent an hour, I rehearsed everything, all my meters are going off, everything's good, we're gonna be rocking, and then you get on, it's like.
So Travis could be a part of the problem. I mean, he's.
Are you guys on the?
Are
you guys on the?
Jail.
Are you guys on the same Comcast connection together or something? Maybe.
No. Like, so I'm on a completely different system than I was on.
Yeah, your connection's a lot better. Yes.
So like I'm,
the connection there in the den is really good.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's solid.
Den.
Yep.
The den. But yeah, no. I see we in the Facebook we got my man Doug. Dude, I gotta tell you. So the Shard.
Yeah.
The Shard. The Good Idea Fairies like been sprinkling the dust. The Good Idea dust on Shard. I'm not gonna steal his thunder, but man, like that dude's been on a tear. He's got some great stuff coming, and everyone, you need to like go check out Gear for Grunts. They're
gearforgrunts.com.
A big part of our show in terms of support, and they are about to like launch a couple of just fantastic products. They got two like great, they got a new shirt line coming out. I imagine it's gonna be a couple of weeks when it's official, and we will like have Doug talk about it when we get a chance. But man, like
sounds like a good reason to have him back on.
Some of the stuff I gotta tell you, some of the stuff that he blesses me with, like letting me see behind the scenes. The onion gets peeled, the curtain gets pulled.
He opens.
Man, like,
hold on,
he's on to some stuff right now.
Does he open the kimono for you? Does he like? He's like, Doug, look at this.
It's called the gi.
Yeah, a little Gear for Grunts after hours. Yes, that's right, Doug. That's what he's got.
Solid.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. Obviously, I haven't seen. I saw him and you both at the same time. Second week of March last year, which was my last trip I've ever taken for work, and that's when I was down there. And I haven't seen you guys since. I'm missing you all a lot.
Probably like tell your boss that's some BS.
Oh, they want me down there. You know why? Loves my jerky. He's like, need to get you down here because I always I bring some to you, I bring some to Doug, and I bring some to him. So they're always like, hey, anytime you want to come to Austin, but right now it's kind of everything going on. It's just like
everybody in Austin appreciates the meat.
Do they?
Well, the suburbs.
The suburbs, yes.
The hill country.
Oh, I think in the city of Austin they appreciate the meat too, just not Stu's. Not Stu's jerky. Something else.
Yeah, there's that. There's that. The
anyways, yeah, good to see you. I was away, doing was out in Long Island. He got out of there just in time for they got a little bit of snow. I don't know if you saw that or not.
I did. Nor'easter.
Yeah, we knew something was up as we were driving back home on Sunday, and we passed probably 7 different convoys of just nothing but plow trucks and snow blowers, like from the Department of Transportation, like the Highway Department, just nonstop heading to the city. And we were like, I knew we were getting some snow. I'm like, this doesn't look good. They're pulling them out of Buffalo. They're pulling them out of everywhere else, sending them to the city. Like, wow, they're about to get hit. So, we got out there just in time. So
is that where the Islanders are from? Like Long Island?
The New York Islanders?
Yeah.
No,
or are they Staten Island?
I don't know where they play. They don't matter.
Are they on an island? Are the Islanders on an island, or is that bullshit?
It's there's only one real Buffalo football. I mean, the only one real New York football team, right? You realize the Giants and the Jets do not play in New York, so it's very possible the Islanders. I know the Rangers play in New York.
The Giants play in New Jersey, right?
So do the Jets. Buffalo Bills is the only real New York football team.
So how does your governor get those like great box seats if he's like not the governor of Jersey?
Exactly, because got their name
corruption.
on them, right? It's
corruption.
Hey, well, he's the you flip open the dictionary of corruption, you're going to see his name right in there next to Pelosi and a few others. But
let's talk about Congress.
No, shall we?
Into it.
Hey, are we going to talk about politics? Yeah.
Oh, just for a hot minute.
Tell me, Toby, what do our cousins up north think of the U.S. political scene right now, eh?
So the cool thing is they're a little distracted.
Getting their rights taken away, or
Are they ever?
being fined for not having a mask on, or
Are they ever? Did you see the video of the kids getting arrested for playing shinny?
I heard about it.
So like, there's this video, and now like the one kid doesn't cooperate, but the way he doesn't cooperate, like, man, it made me proud. It made me proud because
Was
like,
he
so
talking?
they're
Was he
playing
chirping
shinny.
like Shorzy?
Oh, dude. Not only was he chirping, he was like, let's set the scene. So you got this pond, right? Or a flooded area
That's frozen.
that is frozen, right? This is a very common occurrence. In fact, there's a whole new thing in America right now. There's this backyard ice rink kit that has been blowing up. This dude, like, didn't create it, but he figured out a way to package this backyard rink, and they've been selling like hotcakes in the U.S. Well, that's like every day in the Great White North.
Yeah.
Right. And so these kids aren't allowed to go to school, so they're locked out of schools. They're not allowed to work. They're not allowed to do whatever. They're not allowed to do stuff. So what does a good Canadian kid do when they have nothing else to do?
Grabs his skates and his stick.
And they go play hockey.
Right.
So they're in this park, on this pond, playing a little game of what we call shinny, right? Little pond hockey. And we call it shinny because you don't raise the puck higher than your shin. You don't take slap shots. You got to use your hands. You got to be silky. You can do a little bit of wrister. And, not everyone wears helmets. You're kind of toquing it up. You got the, as you call it, the beanie or the watch cap. We call it the toque.
Yep.
And so it's gentlemanly. It's stick, gloves, skates, and a puck. And, like some sweaters and maybe some socks made of merino wool. But like, you're out there having a good time. There's usually a bonfire to the side. You got some potatoes that are in foil in the fire. And then like, you'll skate by, you'll take the potatoes out of the fire and you put them in your mucklucks to heat your mucklucks up. So when you like change out of you're
giving everybody a lesson in Canadian.
No, like when you change out of your skates into your boots, your sorels or whatever you want to call them here in the U.S., like they're warm.
Yeah.
And you put your little feet that have been skating, warm little booties. It's smart. Right? This is I'm giving you a little culture, a little Canadian culture.
We got it. Stage is set.
Like maybe you have some pierogies on the way there.
Okay.
Right. So they're out there playing on this thing,
fishing up in Quebec.
That's a violation of the current health mandate. And they're saying that they're not properly social distanced because they're playing hockey. They're outside. They're not allowed to be there. And so they warn the kids. And then the one overzealous police officer decides that a warning wasn't enough. They're going to arrest these kids. When I say kids, I'm talking teenagers, for playing hockey, which defies all rationale. Right. These kids weren't vandalizing anything. They weren't trespassing. They weren't doing anything wrong other than playing hockey without a mask on.
Getting some exercise
outside. All the things that science tells you to do. Right. All the things science tells you to do, they're doing it. And then they go to arrest this kid. And this one kid, like the goalie's like, because he can't really do it. He's got the flat skates. He's like, penguining himself with all his gear. And he's like, come on, let's go. And then like the one kid's like, no. And like, I'm not going to do it. And like, they grab him and he like shrugs the cop off because they're all wearing skates. Right. The Mounties, not skating.
Not skates, on ice.
Not on. And so the kid shrugs him off. And they're like trying to get him close to the edge. And the kid's like, skates backwards. Shrugs him off. He's like, not gonna do it. And then they're like, I'm gonna tase you. And like, I don't know if you remember a couple years ago, I think it was Florida State, don't tase me, bro.
Yeah, don't tase me, bro. Yeah.
Like, we now have the Canadian version. Don't tase me, eh?
Did he tell him not to tase him? Did they tase him?
Oh yeah, he's like, what? Like, and it like cracks me out.
If he had a good thick sweater on, he wouldn't have got to him.
It's
a nice thick sweater.
Absolute horseshit. Like, and it's like, that's what's going on up there. But they're having they're having all kinds of problems with the vaccination rollout. They're having, there's a little bit of anger because of the pipeline.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah.
so they have
That
their own
premier of
like
Alberta,
internal.
after you talked about it 2 weeks ago, that dude was all over the news, man. He was,
Oh, dude,
yeah,
the premier of Alberta. I've never seen a Canadian politician, period, ever talk on a microphone like that.
yeah.
Like I was like, "Are you sure he's Canadian?" Because he didn't apologize once.
Didn't say sorry not once.
He
No.
wasn't. He wasn't polite, and he straight out like pimp slap the United States.
Yeah.
Pardon me, like hello, like yeah, boy, hey boy. Yeah, but anyway, shout out to my BC brother that had pierogies. Tonight. Dan Scamp, my favorite BC boy.
And he played so well.
How's
it real quick? How's the hockey season? You're playing up in Canada alone. U.S. we're playing only here. There's no cross-border stuff. Tonight, the Sabres had to back out of a game. Not only did the head coach get it, it was a big topic on Bellavia's show today. The head coach came up positive, in addition to 5 other players. So they had to postpone their game against the Islanders tonight.
So
how's it up there?
I have some mixed feelings about how this is all breaking down. Now I understand like the COVID protocols. So in Canada, there's 0 fans except like team personnel and like a few exceptions.
Right.
And they're kind of bubbling it like they did for the playoffs, which is fine. But the Canadian division, the Northern division, they put and made all Canadian teams.
Right.
So they realigned for this season of the National Hockey League. They realigned all the teams.
Which is what they're doing
all
here.
All the teams in Canada are all in the same division.
Playing each other.
So
like a house
playing
league.
Each other.
House league. Play the same team every 5 games.
Yes. And they realign the southern portion of it. So like the Western Conference.
Yeah.
The Central Conference and the Eastern Conference. I'm in Texas, and the Dallas Stars played the Tampa Bay Lightning in the Stanley Cup last year as the Western Conference champions versus the Eastern Conference champions. The Western Conference champions of last year and the Eastern Conference champions of last year are now in the same conference. In fact, which is kind of weird because they've kind of stacked the conferences in a weird way.
Right.
And all the Canadian teams, they have to cover 1/5 the world's land mass to play each other. Right? So Vancouver's still got to play
Montreal, Ottawa.
Still got to play Montreal. It's still got to play Toronto.
Yeah.
It's still got to play so when they play Calgary and Edmonton, that's only 1 hour time difference. Winnipeg, 2 hour time difference.
Right.
Ottawa, Montreal, Toronto, 3 hour time difference. And so the travel on that is a lot different. The road tripping on that is a lot different. And so, I kind of feel like they're getting an unfair shake on some things. And I'm also scared the way it's going to break down. We just limited the amount of Canadian teams that can participate in the playoffs. And I know there's this formula and how they rank and they're going to try and keep it fair. But as a Canadian, I would like to see more Canadian teams playing in the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, as people probably know that follow hockey, a majority of the NHL is made up of Canadians. So a lot of these U.S. teams are a majority Canadians. So I guess they're here. They can't cross back over. They're just hanging in the U.S. Right? They're Russians and Yugos.
But the hidden gem in here is because the Canadian teams are all playing together, East Coast, West Coast. I get to watch the Vancouver Canucks play a lot more.
You got that.
Where I would get 2, maybe 3 televised games a year, and then I would have to pay for NHL TV so that I could watch the Canucks play because they're my team. Shout out to Dallas, but I'm a Canucks fan, and I can now watch them on national TV in my living room without having to
in the man zone. In the man zone for sure.
Broadcast,
right.
So. I'm pretty pumped about that.
Yeah.
I'm pretty pumped about seeing more Brock Besser, Elias Pettersson. They got Brandon Holtby, as a netminder now.
Everybody's like, I tuned into Stu and the Nunn. I didn't know I was in Hockey Talk Tonight.
Hey,
there you go. We talk about all kinds of stuff.
Know.
That's right. So let's not tonight. He said, yeah, Dan's right.
Yeah, no, they've been playing the Montreal, and Montreal's been like lighting them up.
Oh.
There's some guy named Felino. He's apparently really good.
So let's talk about what's going on. Well, we talked about
Congress.
Congress, right?
Yeah. Sorry,
So
we
there's
digress.
yeah, we digressed a little bit. So it's been a crazy last week or two. Remember we talked about we're like, oh well, once Biden was named as a president, we were. We said, I think I even said, oh, what's going to be like now? What are we going to talk about? Because there was never no shortage when Trump was in office. Well, they haven't let us down yet because things just keep on rolling, right? There's no shortage of even if some media outlets won't talk about certain things, there's nothing. The American people know what's happening. So, what do you think is going? What is your view? We've had you had Liz Cheney. They tried to pull her from being number 3 leader because of she voted for the one of the 5 that voted for the impeachment to go forward. You have Miss Green. She said a whole bunch of stuff, and I guess tonight they stripped her. It's almost like cancel culture has invaded the halls of Congress. What are your thoughts there?
So I do have some thoughts on this. First and foremost, the censoring of politicians should be taken seriously. Now, I've been trying to. I gotta be honest. I've been trying to get spooled up on blah 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 Green out of Georgia, right?
Yeah.
I tried listening to some of her comments pre-vote on her, committee removals, and so part of me is kind of interested in the fact that she's been in Congress 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think it's been that.
And I'm like, they already trusted her to put her on a committee.
Three
like,
three committees, I think.
Like, what committees did they put her on? Right. So,
energy, education, and labor is what it was.
Ooh, those are good committees.
Yeah, they're not chump committees. They're not like committee
those,
for the.
Those are good committees.
Committee for the potluck or nothing. It was like a good committee.
Right. So part of it is if you put her on. Okay, so energy, super important committee. Education, also an important committee, and labor. No, these are all 3 of them are good committees. Before you put her on, like, did you do any vetting?
Did you not know what she said?
Like, did you not select her for those committees on purpose, or did you just are we just drawing names out of a hat when it comes to committees and appointments? So if she has only been in Congress a matter of single-digit weeks, and we're already censoring her, and yanking her from committees, that's saying like we did a bad job picking our committees.
Right.
Right. Kind of like, let's talk about a guy from California that is on a committee that we don't understand why a freshman was on an intelligence committee that was like sleeping with a known Chinese asset. But I don't understand when it comes to these committees, like
it's all back scratching, right? It's got to be all favors,
right? So like
she won her district by 70-something%. So there was no doubt, 72%. Her people wanted, her constituents wanted her there, and
she didn't, and I guess this is based on, like what she said on Facebook, like however many years ago. Like, she floated the idea that she was unsure of, a plane hitting the Pentagon. She floated the idea that one of the school shootings potentially was a false flag. Here's the thing is, if you're not there to witness it firsthand, it is hard to understand it. And when people start saying things, which people say things,
on their social media, sometimes under the influence.
Yeah, things people walk things through. I know super educated, very intelligent people that are open to some of the craziest things I've ever heard. And that's because they're like, well, I don't know.
Right.
You could talk about aliens. You could talk about Bigfoot. You talk about any of these things where people like, I don't really know. Is it possible? I guess, and so when it comes to her specifically, and I'm starting with her deliberately, like you you only put her on these committees like days ago.
Right.
And now you're like, well, we need to pull her from it, and we need to
Well, no, the
because
Democratic House members wanted to pull from it, right? So here's
uh,
one thing to key in on, and I was talking to someone about this the other day. They only go after those that are a threat. If you're not a
well,
threat, right? Actually, I was talking to our good friend Mr. Wolf about it last night. I was on the phone with him, and I was like, if you're not a threat, then they're not going to come after you. It's when they perceive you, and she was pulling such heavy numbers, and she had such a big, for a brand new freshman House member out of low place in Georgia, I think 14th district, whatever it was, she came with so much swagger and backing and support from people well outside her district.
she's just the right sides of AOC.
Right.
Like let's just call it what it is.
Yeah. Who also
She's
comes with a
like
lot of, yeah, exactly.
she's just the right AOC. She comes with swagger. She says stupid things,
And
and
she has a big fan
like,
base.
and has a big fan base.
Yeah.
Like, can the Republican Party start like asking for the removal of AOC from any like?
Well, they're
committee?
asking for Omar, right? So they're going after Omar. They're doing it. They're doing a tit for
And here we
tat.
go.
And you know what?
And
The
here we go.
the American people don't want to see that. I mean, they're like,
No, and exactly. Here we go.
oh, you pulled
You know,
ours.
so-
It's like when Chinese, we kick someone out of the Chinese national out of the embassy. What do? They kick our people out, right? We go back and forth, and that's what this is. The other day, the GOP members went after Omar because of things she said and done. So they said, fine, you're going to go after her. You're going to go after Green. We're going after Omar. And I think, unfortunately, until 2022 midterms, it's probably going to be like that a lot in the next 2 years.
Now, would I not like, either one of them on committees? Yeah. Like, let's put the right people in committees. When I look at Ilmar Omar's comments and questions to people in some of those committee hearings, it's like, where she's asking about the people's participation in, human rights atrocities and war crimes. You're like,
yeah.
This guy's like a border control agent.
Well, or you see EOC on the finance committee asking people about, financing. He's like, didn't you figure out how to figure out your tips when you're a bartender? Like, I don't think you're qualified to be on the finance committee.
I remember her like complaining when she first got to Congress that she thought she'd won the lottery, and then she didn't understand they didn't get paid that well.
Yeah. Or got paid right away. And she'd have like,
well, you have to get an apartment. Yeah. But
what this was like to being adult now. There you go.
Yeah. No, like I think we should do a better job picking people when we put them on committees. And two, exactly where I was going with this is like now we're opening the door for tit for tat. And nobody wins.
No, not
because
either one.
As soon as we have this, and it's like, where do we stop canceling people? When I was a kid, I grew up, and an athlete that I thought was kind of impressive because of her dominance in the sport was Martina Navratilova. And, she was just like, she was better than everybody else. And you watch like the Chris Everetts, you watch like these other like ladies try and rise up to that level. This is like pre-Williams sisters, obviously. Right. And like, you're like, man, like here is a person that is dominant in a sport. And then, like you find out like they have some social causes behind them, and, they try to do positive things. You're like, awesome. And then you're like, oh, I don't like how they voiced an opinion about something, so let's like cancel her. Like, we can't do that. We can't do this tit for tat. We can't do this, constantly. Well, I don't like this person's opinion, so I'm going to do away with them. Like, and this is what we talked about when we talked about deplatforming, like the former president. Like,
the sad thing is,
it's going to turn around, and at some point in time, it's like, it's going to happen to you.
What the sad thing is, if you turn back to some of the movies in the 80s and 90s, we watched that were science fiction and in the future no way could happen. And then if we go back and watch, and I advise this time, go back and look at RoboCop. Enemy of the
Yeah.
State, right? All these movies, right?
Yeah.
They go back and watch some of those where you have this even Starship Troopers, right? This whole
Mm-hmm.
enemy of the state kind of thing, where where you are falling out, and there's this whole cancel culture, and cops come out of nowhere and they snatch you up and take you off, no due process, all that stuff, and it's always like it's supposedly always been set like after some major, terrible event, cataclysmic event in the world, and like half the world's wiped out. So that's just the way it is. But here we are in 2021, and it's that way, right? And there hasn't been a major, there hasn't been a meteor that's hit the Earth or a nuclear war or anything like that. But we are already in that where if you don't agree, if they don't like you, they shut you down. They shut down. Whether it's your personal social medias, or it's everyone just finds up something from 20 years ago and says you should be banned from. You should have your Heisman Trophy taken. You should not be allowed to do this all because you said something. I mean, it's sadly those movies have come true.
No, and we saw this, and
Doug,
and
Doug,
like you said, like there's like the slow encroachment on this, these small steps forward. We saw it. Lance Armstrong, never caught, never convicted of doping. He confesses after the fact, and they're like, "We're gonna strip him of all his accomplishments." But like everyone in that sport was doping.
right.
Like the this cancel, this tit for tat. I like Alex Infowars,
Oh, Alex Jones.
Alex Jones. A lot of things that dude says are pretty hard to swallow, right? They're
Right.
pretty hard to swallow because as a rational human being, you're like, man, like that sounds a little fantastical, and you're the one guy that has this like piece of knowledge that nobody else has.
Right.
Like now, while I don't enjoy his rhetoric, I believe he has the right to that rhetoric. Well, I don't enjoy other people's rhetoric. They have the right to that rhetoric. Like, and you can choose not to listen to that person. Like, one of the things that I'm finding like particularly entertaining right now is a lot of people didn't like the former president. So like they spent a lot of time and effort into like harassing, chastising, and like attacking the former president. They could have just chose not to listen to him.
Right.
Like, you don't want to know what he says on Twitter?
Don't.
Don't follow him.
Yep.
Like you don't want to like hear his speech? Hit mute. You don't want to hear his daily COVID briefing? Don't tune into it. Because what we're seeing right now is like the new guy, like the media, like they're making that decision for us. They're on like vacation right now. They're like, oh, you don't need to pay attention to this guy. Trust us.
They're gonna circle back around to us. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, we'll tune you into that. When it's important.
Yeah.
But I really am fearful of any encroachment on free speech, because now we're like being told what's compelled speech. So anyone that disagreed, and this is leading into my Cheney situation point, anyone that felt that there was voter corruption, voter fraud in the election, automatically now must be a subscriber to QAnon. Right?
Right.
Where the QAnon like thing is exceptionally small.
It was Proud Boys, but then QAnon took over. Right.
Right. Well, it was Proud Boys, and till like someone met like the founder of Proud or the president of Proud Boys, and you're like, it's a white supremacist group, and it's like Dave Chappelle runs that thing. Like I don't know if you've noticed, but the leader of the Proud Boys is like, as Joe, what they say in like Lethal Weapon, but he's bleak.
Yeah.
the no,
So it didn't
we
fall within the
we can't
narrative. Yeah.
we can't go to this cancel culture because we don't like what people say, and then we can't compel speech. This compelling a speech, this congressional rule that we are no longer allowing the verbiage, the words mother, father, brother, sister, aunt, uncle. You know, those words are now banned speech in the House, right? So you're not allowed to say, and my brother, you can't say that. You now have to say, my sibling, my parent, my
Yeah.
parent's sibling. You can't say aunt, uncle, mom, dad, brother, sister, son, daughter,
What
my
happens if they
offspring.
say it? They get fined by the House or?
Yeah, like, but that's compelled speech.
Right.
Just
You
like,
have the New York Times making a demand of the president to come up with a czar to cover media czar, to make sure media is being truthful and factual, all that kind of stuff. It's like we are one step away from a flippin' Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. I mean,
yeah,
it's just
no,
like,
like Running Man,
yeah,
ring a bell, like where
Demolition Man,
the media like manipulated everything to create the narrative
or
that they wanted. So
Escape from L.A. or Buffalo or
yeah,
Austin or whatever. You know, you could just the Escape from. We need some of those movies coming back.
like so I've been seeing some of my friends, and I'm not ashamed to call them my friends. Uh, have been commenting on the 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 passage of or the presentation of the executive order to allow transgender athletes to compete in sports.
At the high school level, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
at any level, I
Oh,
believe.
okay.
Right. So I I I have an opinion on this, and I have an opinion on it that, believe it or not, isn't based in hate. It's not based in oppression. It's not based in anything other than science and biology, where I think a male has a physical advantage against a female in in a lot of situations.
Yep.
Just like I think females have an advantage on males in a lot of situations. Like one situation in particular, this is going to sound crazy, a female has a biological advantage in giving birth to an offspring.
I would say
Like,
that's pretty factual.
right.
That's not a
Now, I
conspiracy
can't
theory.
self-identify as a pregnant person because like I biologically cannot get pregnant.
Well, no,
I
so
don't
you're not
have,
looking at it right. Self-identify means you can just say that and you identify
right,
as it.
but I don't have the equipment. My self identity in it doesn't make it true.
Right.
Right. I can't compete in a childbirthing like competition or in participate in childbirthing because I lack the biological equipment. My body was designed not to do that. A female has an advantage in that. Now, a male has an advantage in competing against certain physical activities because their body is better prepared for it. Better muscle tissue,
Bone
like
structure,
bone
everything. Yeah.
structure, bone density, like has this thing called testosterone that helps give a little extra, in the moment. Then, and this isn't an exclusionary statement. This is just this is what it is,
Right.
and I think it should be fair. I think girls should be able to compete knowing that they are on an equal playing field and let their efforts do it. And this is an opinion.
Right. No, I'm with you.
I have this opinion based on what I believe and what I understand to be scientifically true.
Several of our viewers in Facebook just say you're not opening your mind right. You're not.
Right.
You just have to
Like
believe. Doug believes in you. He thinks you can do it.
what I don't think is nice and what I think is exceptionally scary is that if you don't share that understanding of biology or science that I learned in a form of education, that I should be punished for speech considered hateful. And I should be canceled because my words are harmful to somebody.
And it's weird,
Oh,
right? Because I could take your words as
because they're
saying
not they're
they're not
not
harmful.
actually harmful.
No. Whatever happened to
And
sticks and
and they're not actually
stones? Like that old.
they're not actually hateful.
Yeah.
That's just saying that the earth rotates around the sun every 365, give or take 64, 66 days. Right? There's this data and there's this understanding that the moon rotates around the earth every, like 24 hours ish. And it affects, the ebb and flow of water. It affects the gravitational pull of the earth. Like, should I be punished for saying that? Should I be censored for saying that? Because what the flat earthers obviously
They're
am
getting
I
offended,
offending them by
right?
saying that?
Right.
You
Yeah,
know,
it's asinine. It is.
where do we draw the line? And this compelled speech, well, you can't.
Well,
You can't
the
say
sad
that.
thing is it'll draw the line when it gets so outrageous that regardless of what people think in their politics, they're going to go, this has just been enough. It's going to take that, which means something's going to get harmed along the way. Either rights, civil rights, or liberties, or something like that. But it's going to have to get to so egregious or gross, I guess, in aspect that people are. I mean, look at the recall of Governor Newsom in California. That's Democrats now signing 1.4 million people. They're like, we've had enough. We don't care what his political party is. I don't care what my registered party is. I want this guy recalled and out of here. It has to get to that level. Otherwise, people just like, well, it ain't that bad. I know he's my guy or she's my girl. I'm just going to go along with it, right? But how? One part of our society, the stand-up comedians part is really, we're the first ones, right? Against Me Too and against this, and the fact they're going, you guys are just, they're like, we can't even be comedians. We can't even laugh at stuff anymore. I've watched a lot of comedy shows, and I'm seeing more and more of that come out where they used to be so slanted one way, and would throw politics into their comedy routines, that they're all starting to come out against, and they're almost pushing back against and getting going over the top anti-PC to say, look, we can laugh. This has gone too far. How much that'll replicate out, I don't know, from that.
Well, I mean,
entertainment
I think
genre.
a perfect comedic example is Ricky Gervais. Right,
Mm-hmm.
so you got this British comedian, fairly liberal views on a lot of things.
Right.
Exceptionally, he gets in a lot of arguments. I believe is a big PETA supporter, and he gets in pretty interesting online Twitter beefs with people that hunt and shoot
Right.
guns, and he's very outspoken about it. In his last special, Humanity, he kind of talks about dead naming, because he made a joke about Caitlyn Jenner. Caitlyn Jenner, formerly Bruce Jenner,
Right.
Olympic medalist, one of the greatest Olympic athletes the American ever saw, became, transitions into becoming a woman, gets Woman of the Year, and then he makes a joke that, she didn't do a good job, for women drivers.
Right. She killed somebody.
Killed one.
Right. And they went
and
after
they're
him.
and they went after her, and it's it's a joke, and they're like, well, you dead named her. So you're telling me that someone that I knew for 30 years by this name, I can no longer say the name because
They chose to change it.
It's an offense. That's compelled speech.
But we're
That's
seeing
not
that.
hate speech.
But you know what we see?
That's just compelled speech, and there's the difference between speech that has hate and speech that you hate. And
I want to highlight something real quick though, Toby. People hear this and they go, "Oh yeah, Caitlyn Jenner." Or they hear Bradley Manning, and to the everyday American person, people that are watching, listening to the show right now, they make that has nothing to do with me. That's the Hollywood, that's the famous people. That in my circle, that kind of stuff doesn't happen. So let me educate you a little bit what's happening. And I'm not going to go into details on people, but let me just say this. Let me tell you what's happening in America's schools today, not colleges. In middle schools and high schools, they're telling students, and this is across the country, I know this for a fact, and Toby does too. They're telling students they can make up the name they want to go by. They don't have to be called the name you gave them at birth and you put on their birth certificate. And if you've been called them Troy the whole time, they're in school. These are people that are preteen adolescents that say, I want to be called Susie. And they all go, your name is Susie. And they write everything down. And they shame anyone in the class that wants to make fun of you. This is happening in everyday American schools across the nation today. They are giving young people whose minds are still developing, very raw putty that are still developing, complexes, and making them think that they can call themselves and be whatever they want without parent involvement, without parent knowing, without parents saying anything, regardless of the ethics and morals and beliefs that you're raising them at home. The school systems are doing this. This is not Alex Jones conspiracy shit. This is not made up stuff. This isn't freaking flat earth stuff. This is a fact. So when you see that Bruce Jenner wants to call himself Caitlyn, and some other Hollywood person calls himself something else, it's drilling all the way down into everyday America. This is no BS.
Yeah, and going from virtue signaling to compulsion, it's a slippery slope. It's a real slippery slope. And that's why, I always get nervous when I see someone there's in the Facebook chat, the unpaid producers talking about, men can have periods. I saw this picture the other day of a bunch of dudes, with bloody shorts, and they're talking about everyone can bleed. And part of me is dude, if you're a dude and your tighty whities are showing blood,
you want to get that
that's
checked
not
out.
a monthly occurrence. That's actually a kind of a big deal. Probably got hemorrhoids. One probably burst. You should probably get that looked at because you're beyond preparation age.
Yeah.
That's an actual medical condition. That's not a reoccurring biological.
Right.
Scenario.
No matter how bad you want it to be, because somehow you think that's
cool. Just because
cool.
you want and you identify with that, which is fine. I'm all about it. Hey, cool, man. I don't and here's the thing. I don't care. That's your life. That's how you feel. That's awesome. I love it. I love that that's how you express yourself. I love that's how you feel about yourself. But I just don't. Just because you want to do it doesn't mean I have to. And just because you feel that way doesn't mean I have to feel that way.
Right.
I got to be honest with you. I like the Vancouver Canucks. I don't like the Buffalo Sabres. I know. West Coast, East Coast, Canada team, New York team. Elias Pettersson, Jack Eichel, Brock Besser. You
got dropped a couple times when you're a kid. I can't blame you. It is bad water up there in Vancouver.
But that's the same thing.
No, I know.
I identify as a Vancouver Canucks fan because I love them. I believe in them.
Let me take it to another aspect. If you want to introduce yourself to me and tell me your pronouns, which I don't need to know because I can look at you and know what your freaking pronouns are. If I don't give you my pronouns when I introduce you or write something, that's my prerogative, right? You don't have to say, hey, I'm Toby. My pronouns are he and his. And okay, I figured they were. Who gives a damn? Well, I'm not going to call you he. I'm going to call you by your name, Toby, right?
Yeah.
And especially if they are what they should be by your biological makeup, right? It's like if you were saying, hey, my name is Toby and my pronouns are he, her, and it. Whatever, dude. All right,
yeah.
But.
So,
but when those people do, and you don't come back and like, what's your pronouns? What do you think they are? What do you mean, what my pronouns? I'm that's not a topic of conversation.
Yeah, because I don't give a shit.
Yeah. Can I get some extra napkins with my order? That's all I want.
We've been dealing with this for a while, and I'm gonna call it the Miss, Ms, Mrs. thing. I have mispronounced a bunch of women in my life. Because it's due to like over politeness because I'm Canadian. You know, like I'll see a young lady and like miss, like I don't know your name. I'm being polite.
Right.
It's Mrs. or it's Ms. Like, oh, okay. Now I know. Thanks. Ms. May I?
Yeah.
Like, and if that person feels so compelled to correct you, they will. And then that's it. Because when I said miss, I wasn't like, I'm saying this because I'm going to insult you. No, I'm trying to get your attention.
Yeah.
I'm trying
It's
to
a lot better
communicate
than
with you.
yo chick or hey bitch. I mean, really,
Or
it's really Buffy.
hey you.
Yeah.
Like everyone's military favorite.
Yeah.
Like again, if it means something to you, speak up. If it doesn't, who cares?
Yeah.
Like I'm probably one of the most open-minded people you'll ever meet. Now, while I might not participate in some of the things that I'm open-minded about, I believe that you have the right to be you. That's why I'm in America. Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness.
Yep.
But when you take my ability of that away because you think yours is more important, that's where we have a problem. And I think that's kind of where we're headed, where a very small group of people, a small demographic, a minority believe that their right to their belief and pursuit of happiness outweighs everybody else's. And, like this whole well, we must dismiss everybody. Now, if you believe that there was any form of, voter fraud, which I do, which I believe there was voter fraud.
Because I think facts kind of support it, and so does math.
Right. On both sides. We've seen examples on both sides.
Right.
Left and right of voter fraud, voter suppression, voter what do you call it, like
intimidation,
influence,
yeah,
intimidation. Like it. That doesn't mean like I think that there's like some elitist pedophile ring operating out of a pizza shop, like
in DC.
That the president is their sworn savior. Like I don't believe in that shit.
Right. Yep. No, I mean you're absolutely right. If you think, if you fly an American flag, if you believe in police and have a blue line, flag, if you listen to country music, have trucks, go to church, does not mean you're. So there's a singer at Toby. I don't know if you've heard him or not. I was gonna bring it. So he is Tom McDonald.
Oh, the Canadian
Guy. I don't know if you've heard
he's got the weird, like he's got like lip
piercings and all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
a lot of cornrows.
Right. Yeah, cornrows.
Like
so he just came out. He just came out with a song. I've been listening to stuff for the last couple of days. He came out with a song the other day called "Fake Woke," and and it is good. Right? And he calls it out, and he pretty much. And he has another one out called "White Boy," which is really good. And he pretty much talks about don't blame and in his lyrics I'll paraphrase pretty much talk about I didn't own slaves, my parents didn't, my parents' didn't, and none of yours were either. And don't just because of the color of my skin, he pretty much says, doesn't mean I think one way or the other, just like yours doesn't mean one thing about you. I mean, his dude just speaks some truth. And people may or may not like rap. It's really both those songs. He has a number of songs out, but those are his "Fake Woke" is the #1 download on iTunes this week. Right, a Canadian-born rapper singing all about America.
And his name's not Snow.
And he's got cornrows and got everything in his face pierced and tattooed. Probably not someone you want to bring home to mama. But that dude he's speaking some truth. I mean, pretty much saying this whole and he rips into cancel culture. But that's what it's saying. Like, just because you're white does not mean you're racist. Doesn't mean that you just because you voted one way, just because you have a red hat, just because you liked a certain candidate or didn't like somebody, doesn't mean anything. Just the same way that if I see someone as black doesn't mean they're doing bad things or they think a certain way or they listen to a certain music. I mean, it gets me that in 2021 we got a guy, and we just had the holiday marking the importance he had in this country, Dr. Martin Luther King, that one of the basic tenets that formed his entire legacy of not being judged by the color of your skin, but by the content of your character, is freaking
Of the famous speech.
is absent of this in this society,
Yeah.
and has been
Yeah.
absent for probably the last freaking 8 to 10 years. Has been
But
just
everyone claims his name.
claims his name, loves it, and all that kind of stuff, but cannot
Right.
cannot even embrace one line of a famous speech and think about
The
how that
most important line.
yeah, and how that
I
applies
have
to
a
their
dream.
think about how that applies to their lives, right?
Yeah, I have a dream.
Because they do,
No,
they
like,
look at you and they say, "Oh, look at that white dude driving that big truck. I bet he's, oh, and he's got a flag sticker on the back, right?" You could be dropping
yeah.
some M&M in there, some 50 Cent. They don't know. You could be you could be in a biracial family. They don't know, right? They just look and say, "Oh, that's the way that person is," right? Or you look at someone and you see a young black guy with a hoodie on and maybe some cornrows and walking down the street, and people do the same, right? It happens both ways. They look at it and think, "Oh, look at that hoodlum, look at that dude could be walking to his PhD class, right? He could be an executive or something having the day." No one knows, but we can't even grasp that simple concept of not judging somebody by what they look like in
No, like
2020.
I was talking to one of my favorite human beings on earth. A girl I grew up with in Canada, and you know, she was asking about some of the situations that we're dealing with here politically, and one of the things is like we're taking our cues on how we feel about people not from ourselves. We're not having conversations. I know, knowing you, and I know your support for the former president. If anyone sat down that was on the opposite side of the political spectrum and sat down and had a conversation with you, just a simple conversation,
A civil conversation.
yeah, a simple civil conversation where they asked you what it was about the former president that you liked, and you asked them why they support either the current president or perhaps like the Bernie, who seemed to be more popular in the party. Um, you know, if you just sat down and had that conversation, you would realize that that person probably isn't as, off the planet that you think they are. That they have a reason to believe that they do. You might not share that belief,
Right.
but you appreciate the perspective or the lens at which they look at that issue on. Just like, while they might not share your belief, they'd be like, well, you'd be like, well, that person's actually not a socialist. They're not like a person that's trying to like ruin every job and like destroy the country and take all my guns away. And they're probably like, oh, that dude's not a white supremacist. He's a really nice guy. Like goes to church, cares about his family, he like coaches youth hockey. Like, wow, he's actually a really nice guy, and like, you know, loves his mom. Like flies out on the weekend with his brother and surprises his parents on her birthday or their anniversary. Like, what a great guy. Like, what a good son. What a good dad. What a good brother. And because then you're actually having a conversation and you're not taking your cues from somebody else. Like you brought up the red hat. We now have convinced 70 million people that the other 70 million people that might have a red hat are like their morality is somehow compromised.
Right.
Without knowing anything about them. Like Tiger Woods wears red every Sunday. Like, does that say anything about his character? Or does that just say, like, he feels like when he wears a red shirt on Sunday, he's more likely to win? Like, look past someone else's cue. Look past what someone else is telling you. Form your own opinion. Take the time to form an opinion. This lazy way out, this, like, defeatist, lazy, like, I'm too tired to think for myself. I'm going to quit thinking for myself. I'm going to let someone else do it for me. That's what's promoting this stuff.
And just
Because
regurgitate what they say to say, right?
Like,
that's it.
I was sharing with someone from another country, they were like, well, Donald Trump is like exceptionally racist, because he said some things in tweets that could be construed as racist. And his speech about like they're not sending us the bright and their best. Like, okay, what does his record say? Like, okay, that's how you're interpreting some of his words. What does his record say? Like, did he like make it harder for African Americans to get into college? Or was his very first executive order, or one of his very first executive orders on the first day in office, was that to protect historically black colleges? Because like that sounds to me of someone that isn't filled with hate, that's someone that like is, making sure that everyone's represented. The man Martin Luther King that we just spoke about, who does his family look to in terms of like leadership? And who protected Martin Luther King's house and made it a national
That's right.
treasure? Oh, like who made the greatest inroads in changing our criminal justice system,
Giving people a second chance and
give people a second chance? Because if you look at it from that perspective and you take all that other stuff away, when people like do the what's his name on the streets, like, and they try
Jesse
and get that
Waters
gotcha moment,
yeah,
and they're like I'm gonna tell you two quotes, you tell me who said it, and one quote sounds exceptionally racist, and it's the current president versus the former president. If we don't take our cues and we just think for ourselves and we like open our minds and we have that civility, like Matt Goss always talks about, the civility, and we like look past our politics and look at the person, we'll find that we have far more in common. And like, while I'm a fiscal conservative, I'm fairly social liberal on some things, but like you and I are like the best of friends.
Oh yeah, yeah. And
because look, like that my difference politically from you doesn't change my character.
Some of my closest friends, we'll take it even deeper, and I've had long hours and hours conversations. Some of my closest friends over different theology and religions and faiths. Some of my close friends were myself, strong born, Southern Baptist Christian, Mormon, Jehovah's Witness, atheist, Catholic, a number of Muslims have sat around and talked about the differences between our faiths. I have always loved studying religions. I talked to, I sat down with my interpreters in Afghanistan. We would spend hours. Some of them came to we had a Bible study on our fob. We had like 30 Americans on our fob. They would come and we spent hours talking about why the Quran says this, why the Bible says that, all that kind of stuff. A topic that has caused more wars in this world than anything else, and we can sit down and talk about it openly, civilly, right, and discuss it. And the same thing with this. Folks that I work with in my company, they're in Austin, and a number of folks I worked with over the years, some of them are very liberal. They live in Austin, for goodness sake, right? And they'll tell me, they're like, I love talking to you because I can sit down and we can, we'll sit down, we're traveling or dinner, and sit down over a beer or two, and we'll just have open civil. Why do you think this? Why do you think that? Okay, we respect each other's, free. That's the freedoms that we have fought for, and many of before us have fought for, is to have those difference of opinions, and just hear someone out, not clam it up, not like you said, get lazy and just think, oh well, then the news station I watch all the time tells me that's the way you are, so that's the way you are, right? Oh, you believe in this, you believe in that kind of stuff. You and I just a few weeks ago talked about after the January 6th incident, we said, look, regardless of who those people were, what they voted for, whatever, if you try to disrupt the constitutionally mandated process that the Congress was doing, then you're not in my corner, right? You are not a constitutionalist because you're trying to, you not like what they were doing, but you do not disrupt it. There is no excuse for that. I don't care who you voted for, right? It doesn't excuse you for that. So yeah, if people did this, and I think the everyday American, I think a lot of people do. But the problem is they don't get the cameras and the microphones, right? They can sit down. You and I both we hear stories of that, families warring at Thanksgiving and that kind of stuff. And that's sad. That just tears me up to think that families sitting at the one time a year they probably come together. because time is not doing nothing but getting shorter for everyone. If they get together and they can't sit down and just enjoy company because they were a family long before they were one party or another or one religion or another, whatever. If they can't just enjoy time with each other, because that next holiday that person may not be there, and those regrets will last forever, then that's pretty sad. But I think for the most part, most people can sit down and have that conversation if they're not being angst and egged on and just tuning into that one thing and watching that one thing and saying, I'm just going to believe that you're an idiot. That's why I don't engage people. I put up every once in a while stuff on my Facebook and everything, but I have a number of family and friends, especially family, who are ultra liberal, who just keep throwing stuff up there, and I just ignore it. I'm like, it ain't worth it. They were my family before they were anything else.
It is too. We've made it too easy to dismiss, other people, and like where how we got there. Like we've seen it coming, we've seen it eroding, but I'm really hoping, that efforts are made, and I'm really hoping that, and I'm trying to do my part, for the record, in these moments, like there's some things like, everyone knows I'm Canadian, so I don't vote in the presidential election, right? So you can't, say you get mad at me for voting for Trump, and you can't get mad at me for voting for Biden because I didn't vote for either one of them because I'm not allowed.
Because if you voted for either one, it's fraud.
Yeah, and you heard it here first. I did not commit voter fraud. But no matter what, like I want people to come together, and when all the people were raising all that, and I saw it, when Hillary lost, and they're like, the election was stolen, like there was collusion, and there was this whole thing for, I don't know, years, millions of dollars spent, trying to prove like something happened. But the reality is people spoke. Now, you didn't agree with the people that spoke, and you had the women's march and you had all that stuff because like you were part of this thing. But now that the shoe's on the other foot, like I'm trying to say the same thing I said there, and then it's like, if the pilot of your plane is like flying it, do you hope them to crash? No, like you want to do well. Like I'm doing my bit, like I told you so. I'm not doing that. Like I got pissed off about the Keystone pipeline, but like when I posted something about it, I posted like, I don't think I've ever seen a Canadian politician be this angry. And I'm a little frustrated by the situation because it's affecting, family members directly. But, like, do I see the hypocrisy in like CNN taking down like the coronavirus, Twitter ticker? I mean, or now like they put it back up because a lot of people like commented on that.
Oh, really? They did. They took down the death count.
They took it down, and it was gone for like a week and a bit, and now it's back up. And it's like, how many people died, like all that stuff. Now it's all about vaccines administered, vaccines distributed. But I'm not trying to be like, I told you so. Just like last time, I didn't want to be like, I told you so. What we need is, people having dialogue, having talking.
Right.
Tulsi Gabbard. Like I don't share all her political positions.
Right.
But man, like, what an intelligent person.
Yeah.
I would love to sit down and talk with her and kind of flush through some of those things, drill down on some of those ideas. Because like, here's an intelligent person.
I think had the DNC backed her, she could have been a legitimate winner for the Democrats because she was moderate.
Without a doubt, she would have been the first female president.
Yeah,
she would have been. She absolutely would have been. Like, but they spiked her in over political games. Just like what they're playing right now are political games. But just because people in Washington are playing political games doesn't mean we need to play political
Right.
games. We don't need to like, well, I'm not going to help that business because like, that person's a Democrat, and the Democrat, like withheld aid from everybody for 6 months and didn't want to help us until like their president was in charge. Like, that's just asinine. That business is hurting just like your business is hurting. Help that business out.
Yeah.
Help your community out. Outstretch that hand. Like, just because people in Congress are like, well, I don't like the way that person like believes in that, so I'm going to censor them and I'm going to get them kicked off that committee. Like, I just spoke at Tulsi Gabbard. I was listening to her on Joe Rogan, and she like talked about how like Congress is like high school, and like how cliquey it is and the way they like people act. Like, be better. And just because Congress is like that doesn't mean you have to be like that.
Right. Yeah.
Don't take your cues. Like, when you were a kid, did you let your parents make every decision about what music you liked or who you talked to at school? You made some of those decisions. You formed an opinion. My dad would not have liked Metallica. Like, that's just keeping it real. My dad, that was not his thing. He was an Eddie Arnold. Like the hardest thing that he ever got down with was probably Johnny Cash. He was a Gordon Lightfoot lover through and through. But man, like, I like Alice in Chains, and I love me some Metallica.
Yeah.
Because I made that decision. That doesn't make me a bad son, and it doesn't make me less of a man because I like Metallica. It doesn't make my dad less of a man because he enjoyed Floyd Kramer's, instrumental interludes on the piano.
Was he a little Lawrence Welk fan on Sunday nights?
You never know. You never know. Like, we just have to like be civil to each other,
right,
and do our part, because it starts here. And when like someone like tells me like, hey, you can't say that, well, okay, why not? Oh, well, that offends me. Okay, why?
I didn't. Well, you're much there. You may be more so
Cool.
because my response would probably be like, I didn't ask you. I don't care. I mean, it's
Yeah. But it's like, okay, cool. Well, you got it off your chest. Good. All right, we can move on with our lives. Like, if that's what you wanted, was the opportunity to explain that you have a position on something, cool. Send it. Here's your platform. All right. It didn't change my mind.
Yeah.
Or maybe it did. I don't know. But let's just treat people better. And this whole like, I'm going to punish her. I'm going to kick her off this committee. I think we should take her leadership away from her because she did. Come on. Like, I bet, what is it, Wyoming, right? Cheney does Wyoming.
Yep.
Right? Maybe the people of Wyoming picked up their telephones and called her and said, like, hey, we don't like the way this is shaking out. We don't subscribe to that. Our state didn't have that issue, whatever. Like,
I think that's kind of what they're doing in Wyoming, because I think they're turning against her there.
Well, we put you there. Do what we put you there to do.
Yeah.
And so if she does that, like, hey, good for her. We shouldn't censor her for that. We should, like, understand, like, she was doing what she felt was best. Now, if it's someone that does something petty and it's like, I'm gonna withhold this bill, until I get my person, or like, well, sorry, let's use a Republican version. Mitt Romney, I'm gonna vote my conscience. You don't really have a conscience on this, because like, we've seen you do the exact same thing.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, it's and like say, it's up to the people to have the voice, not forget. And when you talk about not just taking some time and talk and ask questions, that means not forgetting what people have done in the past, right? Some people think, well, if they let the media, by the time the next elections come around, they'll just gloss it over and won't cover it. People will forget about it. People should not forget. They should realize a person, they should look into people's voting records, right? Not vote what road that someone's on, but look at their voting records, right? Where if you're about to vote for someone, regardless of party, did they show up all the time? Did they cast votes for yes or no's for the things that you believed, the way you feel they should have said yes or no on? Were they out, gallivanting all over the place with lobbyists, taking them and whining and dining them and not being in there doing their job. I mean, those are the things that need to be looked at rather than just, oh, they have a D or an R next to their name. But again, it takes people have to get past the 5 seconds of instant satisfaction, sit down, do some reading, do some research, and make an informed decision, right? An informed decision is not that screen at 6 or 10 o'clock at night, or really 24/7, telling you what you should be. You talk about it all the time, Toby. You watch a number of media outlets. You like to see, BBC, I like Reuters, that kind of stuff. We try to get different, because if you watch just the one thing, guess what? You're no different than the people that many Americans can never understand. Why, how did the German people, why did they follow Hitler and think, why did they not say anything? Why did they? Because they were fed one line all the time. The same way like lots of people in Iraq and Afghanistan think that the Americans do all these bad things because the big blue loudspeaker just tells them this all the time, and they just believe it. They don't go look anywhere else, right? That's why people followed dictators and people that do horrific things, because they think what they say is true. They never venture outside and look and try to get themselves informed, right? Educated.
Now, so like I know we got to wrap here pretty quick, but you said the word Iran, so I kind of want to touch on that real fast.
Did I say Iran instead of Iraq?
You did.
Oh,
you said Iran.
Freudian slip. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, maybe you said Iraq, but I thought Iran anyway. But while we're enjoying, this change of pace, let's not forget though that it doesn't matter who's in the Oval Office. There are people that are still out to hurt us as a country.
Yeah.
Like, they don't care if it's President Trump. They don't care if it's President Biden. They care if it's President Clinton, Bush. They Reagan. They hate us. Their platform, is death to America. Let's not forget that. And something we should really be paying attention to is, all of a sudden, Iran's within weeks of nuclear weapon capability. Like, we went from years to weeks.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter who did what or whatever. These people, when I say these people, I'm talking about the leaders of Iran, who have run their campaigns, and they have the support of their people either by force or, by proxy or by vote, that, death to America, death to Israel, death to the West. They chant this. This is not a surprise.
Right.
They are weeks away from nuclear capability. And just this past week, we captured a bunch of them illegally crossing into the United States. Not coming in on airliners, I'm going to overstay a visa.
Right.
Not hey, I'm here to get asylum. Because I got to tell you, if you're Iranian and you hit, the asylum booth, you're probably going to get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because people are well, you're actually oppressed. All right, let's help you out. No, U.S. Border Control agents captured a group of men and women, Iranians, sneaking into the country.
Crossing
the southern border, sneaking into the country. Got captured in America after they'd crossed the border. And this country just is literally weeks away from nuclear weapons capability, and people are sneaking into our country. That should raise some red flags. And the reason and this isn't conspiracy, right? So let's just walk it through real fast. If you had the time and effort and resources to escape from Iran, you could have got to any country with a U.S. embassy, right? Turkey,
Germany,
throwing Italy, Slovenia, just
right.
Throwing some options out there. Cyprus, Crete, Greece, Afghanistan, Pakistan. If you had the ability to get out of Iran in any and into any of the neighboring countries that has a U.S. consulate, you could have shown up on the doors of that consulate and said, hey, just escaped Iran, looking to get to America, need asylum. Can you help us out? And there's a good chance to be like, oh, Iranians, we've been hoping to talk to you. And like,
Yeah.
let's work something out. What you got? You got any information? Like, what's it like there right now? All we see is a little bit on Twitter before it got banned, except their leaders that hasn't been banned. And yet these people went all the way across the globe,
Across
to
the
other
ocean.
side,
Yep.
through countless countries, however they got it. So they had the resources
Money.
to get under the radar
Yep.
from one side of the globe to the other side of the globe, and then find a way to sneak into our country. Now, the fact that they are weeks away from nuclear weapon capability and there's people sneaking it into America might not be directly connected, right? But if that's not something you should pay attention to, like, and if you don't think,
And I bet you most people didn't even know that happened.
if you don't think our borders aren't an issue, if you're like, well, we just don't want, like the hard done by, Central and South Americans, that are trying to escape, poverty coming here. Not everyone that crosses that border is from Central and South America.
Right. A lot are from countries over well farther than that. Yeah.
Iran, like they came all the way. They snuck out of Iran,
which is a landlocked country. It's not like they got in a boat and took it from there.
And then they were like able to get here. Like, probably should pay attention to that. And that doesn't matter. That's not one of those things like, well, on so and so's watch. No, like on everybody's watch.
Yeah, because these are the ones that were just caught. We don't know what wasn't caught. You think? You think they're the first ones?
Men and women.
Yes.
Like, it doesn't matter whose watch it is. Like, they're still trying.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to bring that up because, a lot of people probably aren't like tracking that because, like it doesn't fit a narrative, but like,
and it also doesn't grab headlines, right?
Well, because we're talking about a blonde lady from Georgia that's being censored,
right,
and stripped of committees. That's been in her job for
3 weeks,
days.
Yeah, exactly.
Like let's pay attention and let's do better and let's not focus on
what the TV tells you every 30 minutes because they tell you the same damn thing every 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Right.
But anyway, that's
all right. Well, hey, we covered a lot. It's been an hour and a half. We got a lot of hockey in. We got some things on Congress and
we never even talked about the things we said we were going to talk about.
We weren't. We didn't talk about the DOD stand down for 60 days. Not a lot of other stuff, but we got plenty. Hey, we've got guests lined up, I think, for the next 3 weeks straight. We are racked and stacked with guests, so that's why we kind of didn't mind taking the show tonight to talk and just catch up on things, especially that's gone last week. So we have a number of folks tuning in. Are coming on board next Thursday and the 2 Thursdays after. I think we're filled all the way up through February, thanks to the great job of Rob, the unpaid producer, who's all over it and then some. So be sure and tune in every Thursday 8 p.m. Eastern here on Stu and the Nunn. You will not be disappointed. Next week we have Raul Martinez from Fieldcraft Survival. He's our guest next week. And then the week after that, we have Jason Swar from Skill Set Magazine. So, and we have one more surprise one the week after that. So we've got lots of guests. Keep tuning in. Tell your friends, neighbors, including the family, including the ones that maybe you don't even see the same politically with. That's okay. Fight with them at Thanksgiving, but invite them to the show. Stu and the Nunn here. You can catch us on all of our outlets, 8 o'clock Eastern. And with that, Toby, I think we're ready to bid everyone a good night if you're ready. All right. So with everyone to that, have a good night. Thank you for welcoming us into your homes and in your ears. And we will see you all next week. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Stu and the Nunn Show, and we hope you had as much fun listening to it as we did hosting it for you. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. You can find all these links at stewandthenunn.com. We will talk to you again next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. Also, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Commodity Outdoors, Veteran Outdoors, Enlisted 9 Fight Company, Warrior Media Solutions, and BooHammer.com. Thank you again, and have a good night.